This episode is brought to you by Shapeshift.io, the easiest, fastest, and most secure way to swap your digital assets. Don't run the risk of leaving your funds on a centralized exchange. Visit Shapeshift.io to get started today. Hello everyone, I hope you enjoy this interview with Taylor Monahan from MyEtherWallet, where we talk about security, especially in the context of the recent Parity exploit. And the biggest three takeaways for me were A, security is really hard. There's also lots of great ways to combat it, things like audits, things like bounties, things like using MetaMask or hard wallets, etc. And then two, another takeaway for me here was this really interesting thing around MyEtherWallet and how they're experimenting with business models around open source and kind of working in the blockchain commons. And they've been really successful with the donation-based business model where, instead of charging people, essentially people and projects charge themselves for the value that MyEtherWallet has provided. So for example, 0x Project actively gave, they called it a donation, but I think donation is the wrong term. It's either support or something like that, where they're actively saying, MyEtherWallet, you're doing great things. We're going to give you money for the value you've provided. So hearing about that experimentation is interesting. And then finally, this deeper dive on phishing and scammers, I think, is crucial for the community here, where we need to not only evaluate how we can kind of be safer from these phishers and scammers, but also we need to talk with the phishers and scammers themselves to understand why they're doing these things and to understand and make them aware of the ramifications they have on the community. So with that, hope you enjoyed the episode, and goodbye. Hello everybody, my name is Reese Lindmark and you're listening to another episode of Creating a Humanist Blockchain Future. And in this podcast, we take a systems thinking approach to doing good in the world, and we have a couple different series that focus on different system scopes. And today we're focusing on Series C software systems, where we dive into how software and machines are being built today. And I'm very happy to introduce Taylor Monahan to the show. Taylor is a founder of MyEtherWallet, a client-side wallet. Taylor, thanks for being on the show and welcome.
Thanks so much, Reese. Super excited to be here.
Yeah, excited to chat. So before we kind of dive into wallets, which is kind of a hot subject within the blockchain and Ethereum community today, could you kind of give us an intro on MyEtherWallet specifically, and especially how it relates to stuff like Coinbase or kind of the other wallets in the space?
Yeah, absolutely. So MyEtherWallet, we call ourselves a client-side wallet. And that's not like a very friendly term to regular people, but essentially what it means is that you are in full control of the interface you're using, the keys that you access via MyEtherWallet, and therefore your funds and the security of your funds and all of those good things. So when we look at Coinbase, Coinbase has a set of systems and databases and accounts, and your account on Coinbase is your username and your password. And Coinbase actually holds your coins for you. And when you want to withdraw them to move to MyEtherWallet, or you want to buy or sell for USD, you do that via their system. And without Coinbase, you wouldn't be able to do that. With MyEtherWallet, we actually just created this interface that interacts with the blockchain, and it allows you to interact with the blockchain, by clicking buttons and typing things into form fields and that kind of stuff. So, if we were to say disappear, no longer maintain it, you can actually download MyEtherWallet and run it on your own computer. You can run it offline. You could change the colors if you wanted. You could do pretty much anything and it would still work because we don't have that sort of account system and databases and all of that.
Got it. Yeah, so that makes sense. So it's everything is controlled by you as a person, especially the keys are controlled by if I have a MyEtherWallet, they're controlled by me. Tell me a little bit more about this interface that you're using. Could I create a certain UI or UX thing and slap it onto MyEtherWallet, or how does that work?
So, we've had people, usually Phishers, but we've had more productive members of society do exactly that. So they'll take the source code of MyEtherWallet. Ubique is a good example with their Pyrus wallet. So they basically started with MyEtherWallet and essentially forked it to create something that was compatible with their chain. had their like branding, which was green, and had things that were really specific to their user base. And so that was really, really probably one of the most remarkable things that happened like pretty early on was, people were taking the stuff that we built and building on top of it, or kind of shifting it to a new blockchain, or to fit their users better, or whatever it was. And that's awesome to see.
That's cool. Yeah. So, and to check, MyEtherWallet is specifically for the Ethereum blockchain, I assume. Is that right?
Yeah, but
Ooh.
so we actually, obviously when the fork happened that created ETC, we started supporting ETC because our users basically demanded it. And since then, we've actually added support for Expanse and Ubique, and I think you can also connect to MusicCoin via MyEtherWallet if you have like the node instructions. And then we have all the test nets as well. And so all of those blockchains that I just mentioned, Ethereum Classic, Ubique, MusicCoin, and Expanse, those are all like Ethereum-based blockchains, meaning that they have the same functions and calls. So MyEtherWallet just works with them. It's actually really, really incredible.
That's cool. Yeah, you didn't have to do too much bonus work to do that. And I like what you said about the fork that Ubique did, where they, with the Pyrus wallet, and these are kind of these new, like we've done a lot of forking at kind of the data layer thus far, where like, like Ethereum Classic or Bitcoin Cash or what have you. But I'm excited to see these like UX forks where you say, hey, here's MyEtherWallet as a thing. We're just going to fork the code base, fork whatever, and put our own kind of wrapper around the data layer. That seems like a very powerful thing going forward. Cool. So let's talk. So that's MyEtherWallet at a high level. Let's dive deeper into kind of security within the space. And with the Parity hack that happened recently, where Parity, which is another wallet in the space, they not really hacked. Hacked is the wrong term. Well, it's tough to say what exactly the term is here. But 150 million to 300 million, depending on how you count, of funds are essentially locked within a contract that was killed. And most of those funds are within Polkadot and Musicami, I believe, or maybe Iconme. So that has happened, and so this has kind of brought up this is the most recent thing that's brought up these new like security talks within the space. And Taylor actually just had this great Reddit post that dove into how you're thinking about security. So could you kind of just at a high level tell us like how you're thinking about security these days, and especially in the light of this Parity security kind of issue?
Yeah, so this is the blockchain. Like, this is cryptocurrency. This is the sort of the world that we operate in. And it's taken me a long time to sort of realize, like, what basically our security guys put it best. His name's Ryan, and he said cryptocurrency is a global anomaly. And he like dives into like basically how there's no other industry and there's nothing else like this that has like the amount of hacks, the amount of compromises, the amount of issues, the amount of errors, whatever you want to call them, right? That lead to like this tremendous loss. And then he kind of talks about what that means for MyEtherWallet as a company with employees and our own internal security policies, and basically scares the absolute, bejesus out of us. So when we look at, what happened with Parity, it's an indication of how new this space is. It's like a call for us all to be better. It's a call for us all to hold each other accountable for the quality of our code and for the things that we do and we don't do. It's a call for developers who use these contracts to store large amounts of money to be wary of, even if it's a trusted name, to still be wary of the potentials for locked funds, lost funds, whatever. And to, in my opinion, one of the most helpful things that your average person can do is literally ask questions. Like, it's not attack, it's not troll on Reddit, it's ask questions. And get answers about whatever it is. So in the case of the Parity multisig, what happened was over the summer we had a situation that resulted in the white hat group like essentially stealing first all the funds and then redistributing. And the issue with that contract, with that Parity contract that caused that, I won't dive into it because it's a lot, but basically that issue was resolved, but there was a similar sort of issue that like wasn't caught at the contract library level. And, you know, essentially the story is, I don't know how much we believe this guy, whatever, DevOps 199. You know,
now famous within the space. Yeah.
I found this story to be, I mean, it's like one of those, it's like no sleep on Reddit, right? Like, it's like almost, it doesn't matter if it's true or not, because it could be. But regardless of whether a story is like factually accurate or not, the reality is that he's definitely not, you know, a genius, right? He was definitely poking around. He was definitely throwing things and seeing where they stuck. And he was able to basically accidentally, essentially suicide this contract, which all these other contracts relied upon, and now nobody can access their funds. And that's not supposed to happen. And it should have been caught. It should have been caught, period. It should have been caught either by an audit, by the community, by Polkadot themselves, by anyone using that contract should have at some point asked the question, what's going on? Where are my funds actually? What's being relied upon? And I think one of the most interesting comments that I've seen is the reality that the intentions of the existence of this contract that was eventually suicided, you know, was partially to reduce sort of the gas needed or the chain bloat or whatever, because it should have been within a contract itself, right? And it used to be like the original audited foundation Gavwood multisig was, you know, every single contract had the same bit of code in it. You know, it's easy to say 2020 hindsight, but like this wouldn't have happened if that contract hadn't changed. It wouldn't have happened if that code was like within every single contract. I mean, it would have probably happened, but it probably would have been caught and the damage would have been less. And you would have had to lock each one individually. And then, you know, like I hate to say this, but like it probably wouldn't happen if there was just simply more people in this space asking hard questions. Like we're really, really new. The industry's still pretty sparse, and you know, the sort of accountability that I'm seeing, you know, in the community on Reddit is when people are trying to like hold people accountable, they do it in a way that's, you know, either intentionally or unintentionally really, really trolly. And it doesn't actually help anyone. Like, I know that there's people that think that they're asking the hard questions or forcing people to be better or whatever, but you know, the way that you approach it, basically, if you're a dick online, people are going to dismiss you as a troll, and you're not going to help anyone. So it's one of those things that's like, we just have a long way to go. We'll see how we get there, but we have a long way to go. Yeah,
and I think you're right to kind of note that, and then this is a whole podcast in and of itself, is like, how can we create a culture such that it allows for accountability and frankness and honesty and vulnerability, but doesn't make it so that when you're frank, you're actively being a troll, that you're actively angering people. It's like, hey, can we make a reality in which you're allowed to, and you can push people and be critical, but it's not received, and you're not pushing it as something that in a troll-like manner, and we're definitely not there yet. So let's kind of take a step back, because you talked about auditing for a second there, and I guess, you know, auditing is one of the things that you can do in this space, whether it's, you know, through like Zeppelin or through like least authority or what have you. How do you think about auditing, and is auditing the answer for, like, if I'm going to be any person who puts a smart contract online, you should pretty much audit, or like, tell me a little bit more about how you think about auditing within this community.
So there's definitely two different sort of types of, well, there's multiple types of audits, but I'm going to differentiate between two. There's like the auditing of, like a code base or an existence, like MyEtherWallet, right? So when we talk about audits for MyEtherWallet, we talk about auditing the JavaScript code. We talk about auditing our own security policies. We talk about auditing our infrastructure for vulnerabilities. We talk about things that could, on every end, like we talk about auditing the team's two-factor and whether they use it or not, right? And then there's smart contract auditing, which is a completely sort of different scope in the sense that you're auditing a contract that is going to live on the blockchain forever. And the good thing about MyEtherWallet is that if there's an issue or we have a vulnerability or we have something that could hypothetically be used for some sort of attack, we can change that. We can change that almost instantly. With a smart contract, you can't, right? If you have, something go wrong, it's there forever. And, it's just a different world. And so when we talk about audits, a lot of times I think I come off as sort of dismissive of audits. But I'm not. Like, I think that audits are great, and I think that everyone should just do an audit, and it should just be a default thing, right? Like, if you're launching a smart contract, yeah, just get it audited. Zeppelin's great. There's a number of people. I have a list somewhere if anyone wants it, like, of everyone that can audit smart contracts, and you just need to do it. But that said, we shouldn't be reliant on the results of an audit to inherently trust something, because the types of attacks and the newness of Solidity and the newness of the blockchain, for the most part, like the DAO was audited, I think, twice. The DAO was audited twice. Some of the smartest researchers in the space, saw a similar DAO attack vulnerability maybe thing a couple weeks before, but they didn't find this one. Yep. So relying on an audit, having, say, an ICO or a project say, hey, we're audited, trust us, that kind of puts me on my heels. Like, that kind of turns me off a little bit, because it shouldn't be just this inherently trustworthy thing. It should be a piece in a larger package.
Yep. So could you talk about that larger, it sounds like that larger package has could you just talk about what that larger package should look like in addition to auditing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that audits are, a great thing. I think that audits, like auditing early, is good. That's something that MyEtherWallet hasn't done. And I kind of wish that we had done an audit of version 3 earlier, simply because it would have probably given us some insights into how we structure the site or the choices we make at a really high level, rather than like little itty bitty bugs that obviously wouldn't probably be in existence on version 4. So audits are one thing. In terms of smart contracts and stuff, I think one of the most important things is that we encourage and we incentivize developers to create, libraries or core components or reusable modules or reusable patterns or whatever. I know that Zeppelin has taken some initiative on this. I believe there's a couple other people in this space that are working on this. Because at the end of the day, like, I find it terrifically silly that there's not like a standard like token contract. Like, why audit 200 token contracts when you can audit one and everyone can use that, and then all these projects can save money, and we can all sort of ensure this one thing is really great, right?
Yeah, I like that. You asked that in your Reddit post where you said, hey, why audit everyone when everybody's going to do their contract anyways? Wouldn't it be more productive and efficient to just have one contract audited that everyone uses? And I agree with that. And that was something that people also noted about the Parity hack, was like, hey, why didn't they just switch to, the multi-sig that Gnosis is using for theirs or whatever? It's like, hey, can't we just all combine? In theory, it might be a little bit of an issue because it's more of like a centralized point of failure or whatever, but I generally agree that it would be good to see some kind of common collaboration around that.
Right, exactly. And that's what I was going to say, is that, obviously there are risks to having everyone, like, say, on the same multi-sig, because, in this case, this vulnerability only affected this like one segment of Parity multi-sigs. Whereas if everyone was using the same one, it could have been way worse. So at the same time, like, I think that I am almost certain it's Zeppelin doing this. If it's not, I'm really sorry to whoever's actually doing this. But, creating these sort of modules or patterns or reusable things that, can kind of be combined or be whatever, to create a smart contract or to set up a certain architecture or to have your contract be more modular or whatever it is. I think that that's probably a more realistic approach than just saying everyone uses the same multi-sig or even everyone uses the same token contract.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But, again, this is like, it's the newness of the space. It's the fact that we just don't have that many people and that many devs and that many anyone in this space yet. And as we grow and expand, the experiences of others will obviously contribute to a stronger ecosystem.
Yeah, yeah. I think consensus is the other big one that comes to my mind that has good smart contract best practices and like good like consensus diligence and like, really pushed on that security front as well. This episode is brought to you by Shapeshift.io, the world's leading trustless digital asset exchange. Quickly swap between dozens of cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin, Ether, Dash, Bitcoin Cash, Augur, Golem, and many more. And this is not your typical crypto exchange. You don't need to create an account or share your personal information, and your funds are never stored on Shapeshift. This means that your hard-earned digital wealth is never up for grabs by hackers or other malicious actors. To get started, visit Shapeshift.io, choose the tokens you'd like to swap, input your receiving address, and send your funds. It's that easy. Another part of this that I'd like to get your take on is like bounties. How do you think about something like Gitcoin or what have you as a way to kind of push, a way to incentivize and kind of put bounties on things? Are you pro bounties, anti bounties?
Yeah, I actually was on the phone with Kevin from Gitcoin like probably last week, I think.
Nice.
And it was a really, really awesome call. I also was on the phone with some guys from L4 the other day, and they're also thinking about bounties and how they can kind of help this space and stuff. Mm-hmm. And so I love bounties. Like, do bounties on everything. Like, when we talk about aligning incentives, like, that's the entire point of the blockchain, right? And so bounties are the natural way to get people to do the things that are good. Yep. And this is the whole thing. So Gitcoin really excites me. Getting sort of, the things that we've talked about with others are getting more high level, maybe tooling, maybe libraries, maybe whatever it is, bounties on these things that we need, setting up like dev grants or dev funds or something for audits for projects that can't afford it but need it. And Giveth, I don't know if you've ever talked to those guys. Oh my God, like what they're building is incredible. And I think that these sort of Gitcoin and Giveth and bounty programs and incentivizing developers and also people, regular people, to have more due diligence, to have more checks and balances and do audits and create features. Like, I think that this is what's going to kind of push us to grow the ecosystem and maybe also get out of like the ICO mentality, which would be awesome.
Nice. Move away from the ICO mentality and towards the future. So that makes, I guess one other part of this that I'd love to get your take on is the kind of scams and phishing and like hacking side where people, if you're in any kind of Slack channel, and this is, so, when you're in any Slack channel, if you're in that Slack channel and they're doing some kind of thing related to ICOs or airdrops or whatever, you're likely to get a ping from Slackbot that is a hack where they say, hey, or is a phishing attempt where they say, hey, you got to do these things, and I click on this MyEtherWallet link, and it's just a hacker getting in there, a phisher getting in there trying to get money. And so this has been serious enough such that people have like switched over to things like Rocket Chat and what have you, that are more amenable to the kind of needs of the crypto community. How do you think about scams and phishing in this space?
All right, so the exact opposite reaction to how I feel about bounties.
Nice.
Like I hate scams. I hate phishers. I hate that people are getting taken by them. I hate that people are like the scammers and stuff are benefiting from them. Mm-hmm. Again, when we talk about aligning incentives, like, one of the things that makes cryptocurrency such a weird, anomalous thing is that a Fisher taking a single string of characters can result in like utter loss that you can't recover or insure, or there's nothing you can do, right? Like it's just gone, poof. So the thing is that at the end of the day, switching from Slack to Rocket Chat to Riot to Matrix to whatever's the next hot thing, I don't think it's inherently bad, because choosing an open source solution is good. Like it's a good thing, but I don't think it's going to stop the Phishers. Like the Phishers will just move. Yep. And so, this is a hard problem to solve. We've taken like a number of different, it's been a roller coaster. We've taken a number of different, like, let's go down this path and try to stop them. Let's go down this path. And, if you look at it from like a really, really bird's eye view, right? The Phishers won't stop until it's not so financially beneficial for them to stop. Right now, their sort of quote unquote overhead is the time it takes to edit a script to spam the hell out of everyone, plus $10 for a domain, and hosting and whatever. But those hosting and domain packages, they pay for with Bitcoin that they just stole from users. Yep. So there's, from like a technical aspect or like, oh, just buy all the MyEtherWallet domains, or just like do more education. Like, I'm a big proponent of education, but I'm realizing that we're unable to reach everyone. And so the only way for us, like, to stop the phishing on MyEtherWallet is to remove the user's ability to put their private keys on a website, which is sort of the path that we're aiming for right now. Yeah. So essentially discouraging. That's probably one of my biggest regrets, actually, is like even having it set up this way in the future, or in the past, and hopefully, reducing that in the future. But, using MetaMask with MyEtherWallet is the easiest way to unlock your wallet. Using hardware wallet is the most secure and easy way to unlock your wallet. MetaMask is literally easier than a private key. You can argue that a hardware wallet isn't, but MetaMask is literally, you click a single button. It's so freaking cool. So anyway, sorry, I'm like really excited.
So could I ask a question here, because anti-Phishers clearly, and it's tough. I mean, because you guys are trying all these different ways to get around it and educate and whatever. And as you say, a great way to do it is to do MetaMask or use a hardware wallet. So one thing that I like to push back on with these is, like, so for me, myself, I was personally, my like email was hacked. I had like a bad 2-factor authentication on, and they like ported my SIM card, then used that in various ways. And so I have like very little money. And so they actually, after they hacked me, got into my Coinbase and whatever, they like sent an email from my email to myself, so that I would see it later, that said like, haha, you're poor, essentially. So I was kind of lucky or whatever that I didn't have money. But I think that whenever someone does some kind of attempted stealing, whether it's, cryptocurrency or whatever, or like for me, like my car, which is like a 1992 Honda Accord, was stolen twice in the last year. And each time it was stolen, I tried to ask myself, there's this desire to be angry and to kind of like blame others or whatever, but there's also like kind of a root cause thing, which is like, well, why was the person on the other end doing that? Why were they stealing the car? Or why were they trying to steal my cryptocurrency and get in there? Have you thought about, or like, what are your thoughts on that side? And like, have you tried like talking with Phishers and kind of understanding them as people, because that's what I want to do. And it might be kind of naive and optimistic, but that's my desire.
So we have not talked to the Phishers. I definitely I feel like I kind of know them at this point a little bit. Like there's a couple of different groups, and it's weird because I'm weirdly personal with them. I identify their sort of personality traits or quirks or whatever it is. The thing is that when you look at the motivations of people like Phishers, everyone sort of has different motivations, and same with trolls online. It's not going to be one sort of how do you say this? It's not one motivation, and it's not black or white. And so, some of the phishing groups that we've seen it's almost like a job. They come out at the exact same time every day. They do the exact same thing. They put their heads down. They don't talk to people. And then some of the other ones like are a little bit more talkative and they'll like pop up in Slack channels and like make fun of people. And when their site gets taken down, they'll put like a rap YouTube video up. And it's really interesting to see that the motivations are like the way that they operate are different, but the motivations are essentially the same. Like they want money, and some of them want like more attention or less attention. Some of them want to watch the world burn more so or less so. And it's really interesting to see that just being like, oh, there's a scammer, oh, there's a phisher. It's so much more of a gray area.
Yep.
And then, in the same way, when we look at the token sales in these projects, a lot of people just call people like these outright scams. And I think we see the same sort of spectrum where we see, these things that are 100% like scams. Like they are just solely operating to scam you and to get money and to run away to some island somewhere. But across the spectrum, we have, maybe a really good team with like a really bad idea, or a really bad team with a really good idea, or good intentions, but just an absolute failure to produce that. And, then up to like a good idea and like an okay execution or plan or whatever. And so I think that over the next couple of years, as these projects, develop out, it's going to be interesting to see which ones kind of make it through whatever's coming, make it through probably like the bubble burst a little bit. And which projects like actually build useful features for the community and, maybe a successful product, and actually give back to Ethereum. Like that's going to be super, super interesting. And I'm guessing that it's not going to be the biggest names. I'm guessing it's going to be the people that we don't even realize exist right now.
That are just hard at work. Yeah. Yes. So as you say, there's a gradient from the ICO perspective in how it can be easy now to say like, oh my God, the ICO craze, like anybody who's doing an ICO is bad. But in fact, as you're saying, there's a whole gradient of people who are, doing various good and bad things within ICOs. And same with on the, Fisher scammer side, even though clearly a lot more on the negative side. If you are, I just want to put a claim out there. If you're a Fisher or scammer who wants to come on my show, you are welcome to come on, and we should talk about why you're doing what you're doing, because it seems like it's bad for the community generally. Because an awesome future version of reality is one in which the Fishers and scammers aren't actively trying to do things, and the one that Taylor painted a picture of where the people themselves are using MetaMask or using hardware wallets. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword and pincer movement to fix the scamming and phishing. So with that, let's kind of transition to a final thing here. And I think it's just fascinating. So could you tell us a little bit more, Taylor, about, you guys just went through Boost VC's their Tribe 10, and just thinking about how you guys make money. Could you tell me a little bit more about how you make money?
Yeah, absolutely. So, early on we were like so hardcore, like free open source software, like for life. And so we were 100% donation based, meaning that the community would give us ETH, and then we would spend that ETH, except we didn't really spend it. We just like held it. And so a lot of like, if we have a maybe sort of a rougher month or the server costs are really high, it's like the early donations of ETH back when ETH was like $1 or $5. That price increase can pay for a lot of servers these days, which is really, really, really awesome. And then back in February, the swap tab that we implemented, which does the Bitcoin to ETH swap, that brings in a little bit of money when you swap. And then we have affiliate links with Ledger and Trezor. And then we recently added the the flow for Coinbase to buy with US dollar. So all of these little things are kind of a similar, how do you say, like they all are revenue sharing sort of affiliate agreements, right? Yeah. And they are very like, we do pretty well, like surprisingly well for them, right? Like I did not expect that would be like a sustainable thing. And it's long term, it's definitely not sustainable, but it definitely enables us to continue building with some runway today. Moving forward, though, is super, super interesting, because what we're seeing is that there are some useful tools that either MyEtherWallet could build to make people's lives easier, or like these smart contracts that have opportunities for monetization. And one thing that we've been working on, well, I haven't been personally working on it, but it's called Domain Sale, and it's on MyEtherWallet right now on the testnet, and then we're going to be doing mainnet soon. Is essentially a place that you can like sell your ENS domain names, right? And what this does is that, you know, it'll link you up and set you up, and you can buy a domain or sell a domain and all of that. And then the smart contract itself will take a fee and distribute it to whoever you tell it to, which, you know, in our case could be MyEtherWallet. And so opportunities like this, where it's like this transaction type thing where the creators or the implementers or whoever, really, like literally whoever, can get a cut of it for providing or creating or whatever and encourage future development, that's probably what I'm more excited about than, say, just like revenue sharing agreements.
Interesting. Yeah, so you're excited by these new smart contract things where you can use them for monetization by taking a fee or what have you. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. And I especially like ones that, you know, I'm totally against just charging a regular transaction fee on transactions, right? Like, I don't think that that's benefiting anyone. But if we provide an additional service that has some additional value, you know, and people want to do that so that they can do something easier or faster or whatever it is, that I think people hopefully will be willing to pay a really, really small fee for, you know, to help us keep building what we want to build, you know, without begging for donations.
Yep, exactly. Well, that sounds cool. And I think that it is a funny, I mean, I think it's impressive that you guys were able to operate with donation-based, you know, a donation-based model, and is one, as you say, that was definitely helpful that you were getting those donations in something that appreciated, you know, 100x or what have you. But yeah, I think I'll be interested to see how you guys do this going forward. But if you are someone in the space, I do love the mindset though. So if you're a person in the Ethereum space listening and you feel like MyEtherWallet is doing helpful things, I like to, and MyEtherWallet kind of exists in what I call like the commons in between a bunch of different projects. And if you, and I know like OX Protocol, I think, you know, gave you guys like a $10,000 donation after their ICO or crowd sale. So like if you're in the space and think that MyEtherWallet is providing value, then I am a pro donation.
Yeah, so, me too.
Nice. Yeah. So yeah, clearly you are. Yeah. Nice. Well, with that, Taylor, thank you so much for coming on and talking about both security and MyEtherWallet generally.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for having me. This was a absolute blast to talk with you.
Yeah, it was fun. And thank you everybody for listening. And if you're interested also in supporting me within the Ethereum Commons or the general blockchain commons, you can go to patreon.com/RhysLandmark. That's /RhysLandmark. Great, thanks and goodbye everybody.